Let us start our discussion with a point of view from Lithuanians, and let me ask Deputy Minister of Economy, which countries are positioned as example to Lithuania? What good practices are you trying to accept from other countries?
First of all, good day for everybody. I'm glad to be here and discuss it's working. Speaking about the countries which is example, I would like to mention.
Okay, let's check what.
First of all, a few years ago, we tried to compare Europe with other continents or countries which is fostering, which good is at innovation. And we tried to compare how and what kind of knowledge in each country are created. And we compared Europe with the United States of America. And we look at the simple figures. And figures how much government invests in innovation and in which part of innovation government invests. And this figure shows that Europe invests in fundamental research about 70% of public money they invest in in fundamental research. In contrary, United States of America, Japan, China, they invest the same amount of the same percentage of public money in the applied research. What that means? That means that Europe are trying with the government funds satisfy the curiosity of scientists, and the other countries which I mentioned, they try to create real product. That was a challenge for all the Europe and for Lithuania too. And what we made in this area, that in upcoming 7 years, we shift our investment from fundamental research to the applied research. And I could say about 60% of European structural funds in the 6 years will be invested in this year. That is one of the case. The other case, if we could say that is for innovation or for businesses first, for new innovation is really important money. For startups, for the innovations. And we make some discovery that in Europe, the business which starts the initiatives, the initiatives cannot be started without bank loans. That means about 92% of business finance goes through the bank loans. And in the United States of America, we see the opposite situation. That means startups or the new initiatives are financed through the venture capital funds, and that funds which understand what is risk, they take this risk and so on and so forth. And that, at the moment, Lithuania we drafted a law, and not amendment of this law, how to change and how to create some initiatives when the crowdfunding initiatives, peer-to-peer lending and other initiatives appears in Lithuania. That means we are looking for possibility how to change the funding innovative ideas, because banks is not the best options for startups. And that way, I think these countries are the example, or that is a few examples which we see in the world.
Okay, let me ask Madam Deputy Minister of Education, how does education system helps in fostering innovations, and what are the weak parts, and where Lithuania could do more? How do you think?
First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and discuss about innovations and the future. I think education, science and innovation have very strong correlation. Innovation is not simple something new. It's a road from science, from fundamental science to global market, from new ideas to innovations. And firstly, we need to develop new genres of innovators and to prepare people who are able to create new ideas, to compete on a global market. And in this point, Ministry of Education and Science prepared so-called STEAM education concept. Shortly, STEAM is science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and education file with technical creative dimension. Our goal is to create conditions for children from an early age to interest in natural sciences and technology, and by the plan we will create school, we will create new labs, we will improve school labs, we will create 10 STEAM centers for children with modern labs. Also, we create science museum, create STEAM school networks, but it's not enough. And at this point, I want to say about other network, not only STEAM school network, but we have very strong and very competitive network called Open R&D Network in Lithuania. As we know, in Lithuania we have 5 valleys. Lithuanian government adopted a program for created world-class integrated science study and business valleys. And idea is very simple: business and science must cooperation, and it's a very strong ambition for Lithuania. And how the academia helping in innovation, I think in this point we can talk about spin-offs, startups, and technology and knowledge transfer, and about smart specialization. Of course, it's a common product. Ministry of Education and Science and Ministry of Economy, together with experts and universities. It's a very important strategy document for Lithuania. But talking about weak, yeah, I see 2 points in this topic. First point, how to combine business and science. We don't have very strong collaboration between science and business. And the second point, our people haven't clear understanding about what our researchers are doing. And what about third questions?
Yeah,
okay,
we'll come back to other questions, and you will have an opportunity to add something. Let me ask the same question to Kevin and Marco. What would you say are the most perspective areas for innovation? The most perspective from all the fields.
Well, you know my own bias, which is innovation of government itself. And so let me just lay a little narrative, which is oversimplistic but may be helpful. I think there was an era where competitiveness of countries was built around the idea of big industries. So Germany, the US, the ability to come up with new kinds of products, maybe new kinds of services as we get into so-called service economy. I think more and more countries are facing big challenges like health, like education, and their inability to respond to them is actually eroding their competitiveness. So I actually think, to be a bit extreme, that in the US, if the health question or questions of equality are actually not dealt with, they could become sort of, let's say, national security issues and significantly weaken the country. So actually now the determining factor is not how big is your industry, but how adept are you at reinventing how you deliver health and education. I was at dinner about a year ago with an Indian business colleague of mine, and he talked, this was from you first, about LRCs. I'm like, what do you mean LRCs? He said, oh, don't you know low regulated countries? And there is a Constant Gardener, if you've ever seen the movie, syndrome to this is, well, let's go to countries that aren't highly regulated, let's try new medical drugs, and then if people die, well, you know, whatever, and then when we perfected it, we'll bring it back to Europe, right? So that's the downside of it. But there is a huge upside to this. And so if I'm thinking about what are the countries that are able to innovate how they do government, I don't think it's Europe. We are so over-regulated, we have so much legacy, the political will, the clarity, the leadership, all these things aren't really converging. One of my favorites is Chile. Chile. In Chile, in South America, there's a great convergence, I think, because after the Pinochet regime, there's freedom. A generation has gone abroad and have come back with new ideas, new concepts. There's a lot of smartness there. There's a lot of freedom because the government has actually not done much, and it's been the tomboy of free market concepts. So it's been a place that has been completely unregulated. And then there's increased wealth because of the mining industry. So you see this convergence of smart, freedom, and money. And you're seeing things like Constitution happen there. So let me just, 2 more seconds and push this a little bit further. In Finland, if you just take master planning, we do about 1,200, 1,500 municipal master plans a year. Almost 10% of these go to court. That's an automatic 2-year stop on a project. 75% of these cases are brought by citizens. If I'm outside money and I'm thinking of investing, the one thing that I don't like is uncertainty. So it means that any money that you're really trying to bring into the community is going to run away. If the courts say it's a green light after 2 years, that pent-up anger in the citizenship is going to explode at the next reform. So what you're doing by doing these processes the wrong way is you're building social instability. When you do things like Constitution, you come up with a completely different model. We get 97%. And you come up with a new problem, which is people's expectations are way too high. They're wondering why the houses aren't there in 2 weeks. Right? But that's a good problem to have. So I think more and more we may be looking at places like Chile to actually innovate. And I would argue that European countries should go outside of their borders into extreme conditions to help them rethink how they would deliver health, education in a completely different context.
Thank you. Kevin?
I would agree with a lot of this as well, especially on the education front. So I'm on the board of some different schools in the US that serves primarily underprivileged areas. And you know, the graduation rate, well, the rate that people go to university is so very different based on economics in the US. It's 10% of the kids that are in lower socioeconomic areas go to university in the US, where it's about 85% in the higher socioeconomic groups. And you know, so the disparity there is one that's huge, and so we're seeing a lot of different funding that's going into how do we equalize education, because it's very different from, you know, European countries where education is more ripe. In the US, unfortunately, we've got that very wrong, and it's more of a privilege. So I think education around there, because if you look at innovation, I think kids is where the innovation is really going to thrive. Look at any 6-year-old. Are they intimidated by coming up with new ideas? It's like they're not, but our education system does a very good job of kind of beating that out of them. So I think in the reform from an education standpoint is huge. If I look at sectors, then I like sectors, looking at it from an investor standpoint, I like sectors that enable something greater. So if you look at, take the internet as an example, that's a platform for other kinds of innovation to just massively thrive. And what other kinds of platforms are there? And I like the things around nano, because that, you know, you have a large amount of platforms that can be built on top of that. Some of the other pieces that I'd see is there's so much more that's happening around wearables, but then also what's actually a company that we've invested in, they do kind of brain scan in real time with a small wearable device. And what that does for you is you can now start to control your computer or your phone or other things like that. It's really focused around gaming right now. But if you can start to have, and just getting rid of the keyboard and other input devices, then that completely changes the landscape on things. And so I think that, you know, there's innovation at those kind of broad scales, and then there's innovation, you know, as you were talking about in your company, as you're growing, you've got to innovate every single day to tackle what are the new problems that we've just created for ourselves. So, you know, I like innovation along those. So I think, you know, innovation is not just about that big idea. It's also about what are the small incremental steps that we need to take all along the way.
So let me ask another two speakers, Rector of Kaunas Technology University and Mr. Rupšys from Ruptela. And let me ask you also the same question. How has the cooperation between business and science evolved over last 5-6 years? How do you see the situation? I mean, in Lithuania.
Well, we see changes, I would say, from student side. They are very active. You know, they involved. They want to go to business. We have a lot of interns in our company, and we see very bright people, and I think that they become better prepared than before. On the other hand, I think we lack some proactivity, I would say, from the universities, from themselves. And well, we had various practices, positive and negatives, in the past. And I think that we could do much more. So now I think we're doing well with students, and it's okay. But speaking about universities, I think it could be much better. And my personal one of beliefs is, if we speak locally about Lithuania, I think one of the challenges is that in our education system, we are educating mediocre people, average people. We are not saying that we need people who would be bright, who would have their own ideas. My father told me once, he said, you know, Andrus, when I was small, my mother told, be small, don't, you know, be the first, don't show up.
Can you change the mic?
Yeah. So in my opinion,
could you repeat the last sentence about being average?
Yeah. Well, I said.
Yeah, typical Soviet.
I said that in our schools it seems we have some, well, I would say cliché, kind of, you know, schablon, I don't know what's the right word, but some, you know, that we need to fit into. And if you are different, you're wrong, you know, teachers will say you're wrong, you get bad, you know, marks, and everything's wrong.
Everyone was trying to be good enough.
Yeah, good enough, and just fit into this average. Yes, shame or something, and still the teachers in our schools, I mean, I have, honestly speaking, various practice in my personal experience, but I still see with my kids that this continues, you know. And if we continue to tell kids that you must be average, that, you know, you must fit this, you know, where will our businessmen be tomorrow? Where will our Nobel Prize winners be tomorrow? This is my question.
Okay,
I don't know if I answered, but...
Great.
Fine. Thank you, Andres, for the good words, and for the critics. Very good. Thank you for inviting here and to speak. Usually I try to criticize. But today I have, answering to Edmunda's question, to say some positive movement tendencies. If we come back, for example, 7 or as you mentioned, 5 years, was absolutely different story. Why? Now cooperation, academia and business much closer. This is naturally one thing. Another thing, from company side, at that time, for example, 5 or 10 years ago, most of companies focusing how to survive. Today companies focusing what to do better, faster, better product. In other words, they do need some innovations. And very often now, companies coming to universities and saying, let's work together. What I want to say, if there is an interest from academia and from business, from both sides, there is a chance to do something. And at the moment is happening. The same story from the university. University has to think about money, about future, about competition, and they have to meet demands what is needed from outside, from companies, from business. And I could tell some stories. Kaunas University of Technology is one of leading companies who are working, universities who are working with the companies. And for example, one of most successful our stories, we started the process with startup companies. Within 3 years, we managed to found 44 companies. Not because the rector can marketize, but giving turnover, and in those companies working from 2 to 9 persons. If we manage to keep this process ahead, this is really good, and really we do have a chance to work together with business.
Yeah, let's go deeper into educational system, which is really crucial, important as far as I understand it, in innovations. How does Finland succeed? What was the story, in short?
2 things about Finland. So the success is, I think, built on a couple cornerstones. One, there is a huge respect for teachers, which is a kind of shared common social. So people want to aspire to teachers. Teachers are well paid, and teachers have a lot of freedom. So I think that combination is quite powerful. I actually think the thing we really got right in Finland is not so much the first grade through 12th, but is the kindergarten and the preschool stuff. Because it actually allows people to start the whole formal education on a level playing field. In the US and many other countries, the challenges of the education system is they're trying to build catch-up on problems that aren't catchable anymore at that point. But one word of caution about Finland, because everybody always talks about Finland, in this government innovation challenge. Finland probably perfected yesterday's concept of education. And the danger in Finland is that we'll be the last country to realize that the purpose of education has changed. So I think what we need to really talk and think about is, what is the purpose of education? And the purpose of education may not be so much focused on the basic skills. A lot of kids, at least in Finland, come to school already with them. I would argue, in a world with diminishing resources, building social empathy skills is going to be one of the key assets in helping people be competitive. The other one is, because we don't know what the future is like, and it's more unpredictable, is maybe maintaining the plasticity of the brain, the capability of the brain to learn new things later in life. Might be, this is a very extreme scenario, another purpose of school. But if you look at what school is, it's for me a very monastic concept that we've just improved, and we've been the best at some international metrics. I tell people, don't copy us. It's an opportunity to rethink. You don't want to be stuck in the past. So anyhow, the good and the bad.
I'd like to ask almost the same question to the Deputy Minister of Education. What should Lithuania's educational system learn from countries like Finland, Singapore, from the best educational systems in the world? What should we learn and adopt here in the nearest future? Just the main things.
Yes, in Finland, the best education system, I know, but not only Finland, but in Japan and American too, Singapore too. And our STEM education concept prepared by Singapore, Finland, Norway, and Japan STEM strategy example. And yes, I see, and from our different speakers and from different experience, I see that our maybe big point is teacher preparing. I understand and we know that this file is not very strong. Our teachers need stronger competition, especially competition in science, mathematics and technology disciplines. And I think and I believe that our education system will be really a good tendency. It's not very short time, it's a long time strategy, but I think we have really a chance to be similar about Finland or Singapore education, and I think in the future Lithuania will be, I believe, innovation leader in Europe.
Great, we'll have our own Rovio in 2 years, I guess. Okay, we have a question there. Please introduce yourself and your question.
Yeah, Darius from Šiauliai, manufacturing of sofas manufacturers. I have some question about the innovation. For example, if you create something, innovation product, and get a patent and sell it for some Germans to produce, how is it important to keep that production in Lithuania, because I think it can give work for many more people after that innovation coming. So how it's important for the country to keep that innovations also to be produced or to somehow implement in the country.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Deputy Minister of Economy could answer.
I could try to answer this question, and it's really important to keep innovation inside the country and try to manufacture all things of I don't know, of some innovation. For example, we have some example fish deeper. That means innovation and manufacturing of these products as well here in Lithuania. But I would like to ask this question from other side. How the Lithuania is good in the implementing other innovation in our country? That is a challenge too. How we could not create, but to bring innovation from other countries. And that is really important too. But speaking about what is much more important, innovation or manufacturing, for example, what you asked, it is really interconnected, interlinked things, because the majority of innovation is born in manufacturing sector. That is, we must have some background of manufacturing, that some innovation will appears in the future.
Okay, Andres wants to add something. Could you? Yeah.
I just wanted to comment a little bit. In my opinion, if we just look at each other and try to copy what Marco said, I think sometimes we need redesign. So I once read a Steve Jobs book, and he said that he was able to release iPhone because he found a window of opportunity. And in my opinion, if we speak about Lithuania, we are quite, a small country, but we have power. And in my opinion, if we want to be successful, the thing we need is we need to find our own identity and to find our own innovations, and to be unique in the world in this case. If we just look at each other and copy from here to there, sometimes it can work. but in my opinion, we need to be unique. Even if we copy something, we need to be specific.
Copy with pride.
Copy with pride, perhaps, yeah. But we need to be specific somewhere. We need to say our strengths are here, you know. We cannot be agriculture number one and IT number one and then fishing number one and everything. We need to say to ourselves, this is our priority, this is something we do, and invest huge money into this to release our potential. This is just a short comment.
Please, Rector wants to add something. And then Marius.
One brief remark about education systems. From my point of view, we do have differences.
Let me help. I think you should keep it like this because it's a transmitter.
Okay, try. Thank you. If we try to find main differences between Finnish education system, other countries' education system, from my point of view, we are still very close, especially university education system. We have to open this to society, to have to open to business and to companies. This is, of course, long discussion, but the idea is, in one word, is
what should government do more in strengthening cooperation between science and business in Lithuania? What would you think?
In 2 sentences, should be a little bit changed financial supporting education system, which orientates towards quality but not to quantity. This is the main point. Of course, it's again long story, but the idea is
quality of students,
quality of everything, of studies, of research, of product, everything, to quality result to product.
You mean quantity? That's the
quantity. If to take a very clear example, for example, today universities are competing of students. They want to get more money. They have to compete for quality.
Yeah, more students you get, more money you get from the state budget.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Deputy Minister, yeah. We also welcome questions
I would like
from
to
the
answer
audience.
to Oto's question. To ask, have the country some areas in which they see perspective? And the government, science and businesses made some exercises which called smart specialization. Then we would try to assess the global challenges. We try to assess the experience which have science and potential which has businesses. And we describe 6 key areas for Lithuania in which the biggest fund will be invested. And I could say biotechnology and healthcare is one of the top priorities for the country. And I could say why. Because we see that society is aging. We want to diagnose disease early. We are trying to create some individualized medicine and so on and so forth. And what we have in Lithuania, we have about 18,000 researchers and specialists. We have about 16 academical institutions. We have about 15 R&D centers which work in this area. And that is really, looking from the science part, is quite a representative numbers. And what we have in businesses, we have businesses which annually grows 25% and at the moment make up about 1.5 national GDP. And when we look at in the future, that is this sphere, I think in 5 years could triple. And that is area which Lithuania see as a priority. And it's a good question that to try to create Silicon Valley here, I think Silicon Valley is not the future. That we must find the new areas which could be interesting for science, for businesses, for them. Think of internet. How will change the logistics system? Speak about driverless car, about using drones and so on and so on. that is the future, and that is the question for government, for science, and for businesses. That means we made these exercises. It was not easy, but we have six priorities, which we hold as our priorities of Lithuania.
Okay, thank you. And then we have a question, please.
Yeah, I have a question for maybe more science, from science side. Okay, strategy is everything good. We know strategy that we have to be innovative, but let's go to execution. How we do that? How we form a critical mass of people who think innovative, and how to push this innovative towards the students and schoolboys, schoolgirls also. So I know that Professor Barshauskas started Innovation University, and how he succeeds and how it's a problem he causes during the process.
Okay.
You know, I can't say that I'm an expert of everything including, but from my point of view of logic, this should start from very early days, from kindergarten, all the time, what you ask. And this is supposed to be very systematic. Then we might have the result.
Okay, Kevin wants to add something, please.
Just a quick thing. I think one of the things, STEM, I agree that STEM is really important. Like, it works. It's design. Because design is not just how it looks, design is how it works. And I think that's a
Excuse me, we should do something. Can we bring another microphone to Kevin? Yeah.
Or how do we teach kids how to think? How do they problem solve? Because that's really what science is about. You take a look at something and you're trying to figure it out, and then you need to look at it from many different perspectives. And instead of saying, okay, the Battle of Hastings was in 1066 and all the memorization, but it's more of how do you design things, how do you think about things, how do you solve problems, and that inherently is around collaboration. So I think that's one of the big ways that things can start to change. Because if you look at Silicon Valley, copying, I wouldn't try to copy what Silicon Valley does, but there's some fundamentals that they do extremely well. And one of the things, you look at Stanford and Berkeley and all the other universities there's big collaboration that happens between industry and the universities. And the thing is the government is not involved with it, the university is not fundamentally involved with it. It's part of the whole culture of what takes place is there's cross-pollination and people just go back and forth. And so it's less systems and it's more of culture.
Iris, would you like to add something?
Maybe I would like to add something. Speaking about, I understand the question was how to foster the cooperation between science and businesses, because it's quite hard to hear. And when we speak about Silicon Valley and how this culture was created, is quite interesting. This culture was created with the help of the government. Government started to buy products which didn't exist in the market. For example, how to prepare the internet. Internet, first of all, it was tasked from defense agency, how to create the connection between some military bases. This basis of all innovation in Silicon Valley was from the government. They want to products which didn't exist in the market. That is the key factor, which how I see the situation. For example, if you see at Stanford Research Institute budget, you could see that 63% of budget came from the DARPA, that is this United Defense Agency. About 10% from the health agency. That means government asked for the products which didn't exist in the market, and that they create possibilities to work businesses and science together. And we, a few months ago, adopted the same law in Lithuania. And Ministry of Defense started to buy the first products. It's called the drone with special requirements, and 9 applicants want to participate in these tenders. That means we have potential, but maybe the demand is that is maybe the demand is quite low. The demand could be built operated from the government side, because when we see the budget which are spent to the public procurements, it's really huge in each country, and maybe it could serve for innovation. And Silicon Valley, you could say the idea that is created from this part, with this procedures. And government want defense agency that was of defense agency. How they create this this culture. That is my